The Price of Fear. Brought to you by Vincent Price.
Hello. I'm so happy you're with us again. This story I've called William and Mary. I suppose that most of us have, at some time or another, lain awake in the early hours of the morning and thought about death and the afterlife. I know I have. Or rather, I used to, until a few years ago, when I had an experience which caused me to... but let me explain. At that time, I was living in a small university town. Although I was unaware of it, I was actually living only a few hundred yards away from two old friends of mine, William and Mary Pearl. I say old friends, but in fact I had known Mary when we were students together, and had only met William when Mary married him some years later. I had absolutely no idea that they were even in the same town as I, until one morning, to my utter surprise, a letter arrived from their solicitor informing me of William's death. He had, it seems, left me a small bequest.
Before I begin the reading, I should like to extend my deepest sympathy to the widow of my late friend and client, William Pearl.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I shall now read the last will and testament of the late William Arthur Pearl. I, William Arthur Pearl, being of sound mind...
As I sat in that rather dreary little office, I found myself staring at Mary. To say that I was shocked by the change in her appearance would be to understate the case. When I first knew her, she had been a lively, pretty girl. Now she had developed a sullen, resentful air, and her whole face gave the impression of having slowly but surely sagged to pieces through years and years of joyless marriage to her husband, William. At first, they had been happy enough, but then, as William grew older, he developed a kind of cruel, nagging irritability, which Mary had at first tried to dissuade, then to combat, and finally to accept in silence. I remembered the occasion of our last meeting. Mary and I were sitting in the Pearls' flat, waiting for William to return from a lecture. We sat chatting of this and that, and I remember I had offered her a cigarette, which she had accepted and lit without thinking.
Oh, what have you done? I shouldn't be smoking, you know. William disapproves. In fact, between ourselves, he disapproves of most things these days. He's changed a lot, you know. He's become almost a caricature of a peevish, pedantic don. I'm surprised you hadn't noticed it.
Really, Mary, you exaggerate, I'm sure.
I'm sorry, I'm embarrassing you. Stupid of me.
You are also embarrassing me, my dear.
William.
Continually refusing to obey my request concerning your smoking.
William, I'm sorry. I didn't see you come in.
That's blatantly obvious. Otherwise, you'd hardly be smoking a cigarette and discussing me as though I were a delinquent child.
This is really my fault. I was asking
there's
Mary...
no need to be gallant, old man. Mary, it seems, has developed a martyr complex, which can only be alleviated by the consumption of endless numbers of cigarettes.
For God's sake, must you behave like this in front of friends? Why the hell do you object to my smoking anyway? I'm afraid I'll get cancer.
No, it's not that.
Then why can't I smoke?
Because I disapprove, that's why.
You disapprove of so many things, William. Cigarettes, lipstick, alcohol, children. Especially children.
Needless to say, as soon as I could decently excuse myself, I left this somewhat painful domestic scene. And after that, we rather drifted apart. Indeed, I was surprised that William had remembered me at all, let alone left me something in his will. I even felt that he had begun to resent my very friendship with Mary.
And finally,
the voice of the solicitor broke in on my thoughts and brought me back to reality.
I have been instructed to give you this sealed envelope. Your late husband sent it to us shortly before he passed away. Since it appears this might contain something of a personal nature, no doubt you prefer to take it with you and read it in private.
Yes, thank you. I think I should.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the reading of the last will and testament of the late William Arthur Pearl. It only remains for me to thank you for coming in, to wish you a good day.
Good day.
Mrs. Pearl, good day, gentlemen.
Mary, dear,
I'm so glad you came. It's good to see you again.
And I'm delighted to see you again, although I could have wished that the meeting had taken place in happier circumstances.
Look, why don't you come back for a drink? Now, I mean.
Well, are you sure? Wouldn't you rather be alone?
No, I'd like you to come, really, I would. I'm afraid I'm not much good at being alone. And this letter worries me a little. I don't know why.
But then, of course, I'd be delighted to come. When we arrived at the Pearls' house, Mary led me straight through to the living room. I remember she didn't even stop to move her coat. As soon as we were settled, she took out the envelope the solicitor had given her and drew out 15 or so closely written sheets. Slowly, she reached into her handbag, took out her spectacles, and put them on. Then, holding the pages high in front of her, she began to read aloud.
This note, my dear Mary, is entirely for you and will be given to you shortly after I am gone. It is nothing but an attempt on my part to explain exactly what Dr. Landy is going to do to me. Oh, no. I knew it would be something like this. How could he?
Mary, what's the matter, man? You've gone quite pale. Who is this Dr. Landy? What did he do to William?
I'll be all right. Here, you take the letter and read it to me, please. It will make it easier hearing all this from a third person.
Very well, my dear, if you want me to, but I...
Please.
Well, of course, yes. Now, let's see, where did we get to? Yes, here we are. The details of the disease that struck me down so suddenly, you know. No need to waste time on them. As I have lain here in hospital with somewhere between 1 and 6 months to live, I seem to be growing more melancholy every hour. And then, one Tuesday morning, 6 weeks ago, my friend John Landy, the neurosurgeon, burst into my room.
William, my boy, this is perfect. You're just the one I want.
Hello, John.
Well, now, in a few weeks' time, you're going to be dead, correct? Do you believe you'll go to heaven?
I doubt it. But what's all this about? Hardly a good bedside manner. In a few weeks, you're going to be dead.
Sorry. But look, would you be prepared to consider a proposition?
I haven't the faintest idea what you're talking about.
I'm serious.
Oh, go on. I've very little to lose by listening.
On the contrary, you've a great deal to gain, especially after you're dead. This is something I've been working on quietly for some years. A long time ago, I saw a medical film brought over from Russia. It showed a dog's head, severed from the body, but with the normal blood supply being maintained.
Sounds gruesome.
The thing is that it was alive. The brain was functioning. Now, my idea, which grew out of seeing that film, was to remove the brain from the skull of a human being and to keep it alive, functioning as an independent unit after he is dead. For example, after you are dead.
Good God.
I've already completed a number of successful trials with animals, and now I'm ready to try it with a human.
I don't like the idea one bit.
Interrupting and let me finish. Think of it, man. Your own brain, in perfect shape. It's crammed full of a lifetime of learning. Yet soon it's going to have to die along with the rest of your body.
It's repulsive. What possible use can there be in keeping my brain alive if I couldn't talk or see or hear or feel?
I believe you would be able to communicate with us. But let me explain a bit more. At the very moment of death, I should have to be standing by so that I could step in immediately and try to keep your brain alive.
Are you serious about this?
Certainly.
What would you do?
I should immediately open your neck and locate the 4 arteries, the carotid and the vertebrals. I should then stick a large hollow needle in each. These 4 needles would be connected by tubes to the artificial heart. Then, working quickly, I should dissect out the left and right jugular veins and hitch these also to the heart machine to complete the circuit. Now, switch on the machine, which is already primed with the right type of blood, and there you are. The circulation through your brain would be restored. You'd have a dead body and a living brain.
But would it function?
Oh, my dear William, how should I know? I can't even tell whether it would ever regain consciousness.
And if it did?
That would be fascinating. Lying there with all your thinking processes working beautifully, and your memory as well.
And not being able to see, feel, hear, or smell.
Now, wait a minute. I'm going to leave one of your optic nerves intact, as well as the eye itself. I've already constructed a small plastic case to contain the eyeball. And when the brain is in a basin submerged in Ringer solution, the eyeball, in its case, will float on the surface of the liquid.
Staring at the ceiling. Hilarious. But how could I communicate with you?
By means of a sensitive piece of apparatus known as an encephalograph, which records the brain's electrical and chemical discharges on a graph.
But do you honestly believe that when my brain is in that basin, my mind will be able to function? That I shall be able to think and reason as I do now?
I don't see why not. It's the same brain. It's undamaged. You'd be living in an extraordinarily pure and detached world. No worries, or fears, or pains, or hunger, or thirst. And for you, William, a doctor of philosophy, it would be a tremendous experience. You'd be able to reflect upon the ways of the world with a detachment and a serenity that no man has ever attained before. Great thoughts and solutions might come to you, great ideas that could revolutionize our way of life. But look here, I'm not asking you to make up your mind immediately. Sleep on it. Perhaps you would give me a ring tomorrow. I'll be at home.
Yes, all right. I'll think it over and let you know.
Hello, John Lander here.
Landy, Pearl here. Look, I've been thinking over your proposition and...
Yes? What have you decided?
Well, my first reaction was one of revulsion, but now, well, I'm not so sure. But one thing bothers me, though. What if it were painful or I became hysterical? There'd be no escape.
William, there are always risks connected with any major scientific experiment, but think of the other aspect. Suppose it succeeded. There would be your brain functioning perfectly, producing original and imaginative theories. Man, you'd be immortal.
Yes. That's what appealed. My brain continuing its work untrammeled by physical considerations. And though I say it myself, I'm rather proud of my brain. It's a damn good one.
Well?
Yes, John, I'm going to do it. I've decided to go through with it.
Splendid. Now, look, I'll be over right away to discuss the...
Just one thing, John. Mary, should I tell her?
Yes. I suggest you discuss it with her as soon as possible.
Better, I suppose. Although she's hardly likely to realize the importance of such an experiment. It's going to be difficult.
Well, why not write it all down in a letter to be given to her when you're dead? It might be better. Less complicated all round, eh?
Yes, I see your point. Well, I'll think about it. Good night for now, John.
Goodbye.
A letter. Why not? To be opened only after my death.
Only after my death. Well, Mary, I will not say goodbye because there's just a chance that if Landy succeeds, I may actually see you again. I've tried several times to prepare you for this news, but you have constantly refused to give me a hearing. Please change your mind now and give Landy a call. Your faithful husband, William.
Oh, God.
There's more, Mary. P.S. Be good when I am gone. Do not drink. Do not smoke. Do not buy a television set. And incidentally, now that I have no further use for it, I suggest you have the telephone disconnected.
Oh, really?